Hi everybody, welcome to Jehovah Boy. I'm your host Doug Smith, and this is my podcast. My very first episode of my very first podcast. I've been doing stand-up comedy in New York City for 14 years, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only comedian yet to have their own podcast. And as we all know, that's exactly what the world needs, is more comedy podcasts. What took me so long to take the plunge? Simple answer, morbid fear of technology. That's it. I've seen my friends' home podcast setups and the wires and mics and internet issues and uploads made me physically ill. I thought I would last one day before I hang myself with a USB cable. And here I am. I'm doing it. I've got a cable right here. I might do it. I don't know. I have a hotline number in case my frustration reaches a boiling point. But I'm taking the plunge. Here we are. I do, though. I have a morbid fear of technology. I feel like my relationship with technology is similar to my relationship with horses. They can sense my fear and fail to cooperate. It's been part of me my whole life. I think it all stems back to my formative years as a Jehovah's Witness. You're going to hear a lot about Jehovah's Witnesses over the course of this podcast. Many of you are probably familiar with them. You probably had them come to your door at some point. You may even think, this guy's voice sounds familiar. Why does his voice sound familiar? I don't know. Maybe you slammed a door in my face at some point. Chances are you have had Jehovah's Witnesses come to your door. If you haven't, congratulations. I don't know how you evaded them. I have to assume you must live in Bin Laden's cave, because they're everywhere. There's 8 million of them. They're 8 million strong worldwide. Fun fact, 12,000 of them were actually sent to concentration camps during World War II. And if you've ever had them come to your door, I think you'll agree that that number is not high enough. But if you're not familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, like I said, you're going to hear a lot about them over the course of this podcast. But I'm going to give you a quick crash course, real quick, just so you have some idea of what they're all about. They are they're a cult, first and foremost, a sect of Christianity, as they call themselves. They believe that sin was introduced to the world through Adam and Eve, and we are living under the regime of Satan. We are living in Satan's world, and we're living in the last days, and all the things that are happening in the world, war and pestilence and disease and natural disasters, anything bad that happens in the world, they can point and be like, see, we're living in the last days. This is it. Armageddon is close at hand. It's upon us. And they falsely predicted Armageddon 4 times over the last 100 years. So they smartened up, and now they just say it's very close. It's close at hand. They know better than to assign an actual date. But they believe that Jesus gave himself as a ransom sacrifice, and they believe that Armageddon is it's gonna happen at any point. Fire and brimstone will rain down upon the earth and obliterate 99.9% of the population. Anybody who is a non-believer, anybody who is not a firm believer in Jehovah and his kingdom will be wiped off the face of the earth. And then Jehovah will transform this husk of a destroyed earth into a beautiful paradise earth, the way he originally intended it, where man and beast will live in harmony as one forever. Live forever on this beautiful paradise. And all those Jehovah's Witnesses who were formerly deceased will be resurrected from the dead to join their loved ones to live on this paradise earth forever. And a select few, 144,000 who have deceased, will rise to the heavens as spirit beings to rule over this paradise earth along with Jesus Christ himself. And you thought Scientology was crazy. This is what they believe. They also believe that everything fun and good in the world is pagan and bad. No holidays of any sort. No Christmas, no Halloween, no Hanukkah, no Thanksgiving, no birthdays, not even your own birthday. You can't hang out with anybody who's not a Jehovah's Witness. You can't go to school dances, no cigarettes, no drugs, a lot of the things that are dissuaded by other religions, but they're punishable offenses among Jehovah's Witnesses. You're shielded from the outside world. You're led to believe that the outside world is evil. It's an evil, dangerous place. So I basically grew up in a bubble for 20 years until I eventually escaped. And as a 90s kid, one of the evils that I was warned about was the burgeoning internet culture. And I was led to believe that if I was to dabble in the World Wide Web, Satan himself would bend me over my desktop Dell and have his way with me. So I had a computer. My parents did allow me to have a computer, but it was kept in the basement. I think this was a strategic plan on their behalf to dissuade me from using it as much as possible, because they knew how terrified I was of going in the basement. I'm still terrified of basements. I just saw that movie Barbarian a couple weeks ago. Now I'm probably more terrified of basements than ever. But I did not want to go down into the basement to use this computer. I was only allowed to use it to type up English essays on Microsoft Word. And my older sister eventually jerry-rigged some dial-up connection because she felt bad for me. She wanted me to have internet access. And I dabbled here and there, but it was, the computer happened to be positioned right next to the furnace. So the basement is as if the basement wasn't bad enough. The furnace was right there as well. And it was just an unpleasant place to be, a scary place to be. And I logged on to a couple of porn sites, but I couldn't jack off next to knowing the furnace could go off at any moment. Remember in Home Alone how terrified Kevin McAllister was of that furnace? Imagine him jacking off next to that. You can't get off knowing you're just going to be interrupted by... The thing is loud and terrifying. No. So, yeah, the computer was not something I wanted much to do with. And the sphere of technology has followed me my whole life. I dropped out of art school my second year. I was an animation major, dropped out my second year. It's embarrassing to drop out of art school. It's fucking preschool for adults. I think they give you your degree written in crayon. And I couldn't hack it because second year was all focused on computer animation. And I just pieced out. Couldn't do it. I finally got a new phone last week after putting it off for years. I've been rocking an iPhone 7 for 6 years, terrified of getting a new phone because my son's entire childhood is on my phone. 5,000 photos, 1,000 videos. I don't know if that's the normal amount, but I know it's supposedly backed up by the iCloud, but I don't know what that means. And I was terrified that everything was just going to be lost, completely lost, And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's some other kid out there asking his dad right now, "Hey, Dad, what was that like as a baby?" He's like, "Oh, I dropped my phone in the toilet and I forgot to back up my iCloud." We can't put our trust in these devices. It's insane. So I was terrified of getting a new phone. I didn't think all my files were going to transfer. I had no idea how easy it was now. They all literally jump from one phone to the next. But anyway, a couple of years ago, this guy reached out to me on Instagram, and he complimented my stand-up. He said, "I'm an audio engineer. If ever you need any help in that realm with any recordings or anything, reach out. I'd be happy to work with you." And I made a mental note of that. I put it on the back burner. And over the last couple of years, I appeared as a guest on a couple of podcasts talking about my experience as a Jehovah's Witness, talking about all the repression and the brainwashing and the shunning, getting ostracized by your friends and family when you leave the organization, and my struggles to adapt to life in the real world after being in this bubble first half of my life. And the amount of messages I received from people online was astounding. Current Jehovah's Witnesses, former Jehovah's Witnesses, people that are not even Jehovah's Witnesses, people, Hasis, Mormons, people in various other extremist religious groups that found a lot of parallels and reached out to me saying, yeah, this, especially with Jehovah's Witnesses, this is a dangerous cult that's destroyed my family. I am not allowed to speak to my family and friends anymore. They've cut me out of their lives. Thank you for shedding some light on this. Thank you for being able to mirror my experience and talk about this so openly and honestly. And it really struck a chord with people. And I thought, wow, I really have an opportunity to help people here, because these platforms that we have now didn't exist when I was growing up. I couldn't listen to somebody talk about the evils of this organization when I was growing up. I was shielded from that for it didn't exist. And even if it did, I would have had to go into the basement to fucking log on to my Dell and watch a YouTube video. And I wasn't going to do that. So I thought, man, I really have an opportunity here to help people and offer some encouragement and support to people that want to get out. I got out. Now it's my duty to go back for my fallen comrades. And trust me, I'm no authority on this. I'm no self-help guru. Take my words with a grain of salt. But I do believe there's an out if you want it. But I'm still in the weeds. I've been in therapy for 15 years, dealing with feelings of worthlessness and self-hatred and shame and guilt, and thinking every decision that I've made is the wrong decision, and feeling like a burden and a nuisance and an imposition. I imagine that half the people listening to this right now are thinking to themselves, nope, not interested, turning it off, listening to something else, just, figuratively slamming the door in my face, similar to what happened to me as a kid. Because I was out there. I was out knocking on doors with my mom as a kid from the time I was 6 years old, going to strangers' houses unannounced. And, a door getting slammed in your face was best case scenario. I had people scream at me. I ran from attack dogs. I had a man threaten to pull a shotgun on me one time. And I got to be honest, I don't blame them, because in this day and age, people get upset if you call them on the phone unannounced. FaceTime somebody without scheduling it ahead of time. It feels like an assault. How dare you? Imagine showing up at someone's house unannounced. I'm lucky I didn't get my brains scattered all over someone's driveway. So anyway, I thought I have a duty here to try to help people and talk about my experience, and in hopes that other people can use my insights. I don't know if you want to call it that. I don't have much insight, but anyway, I felt like I had an opportunity to help people. It's beyond me. I felt like I really had an opportunity to help people and offer people some encouragement and support, that there is a way out. There's a wonderful life to be lived on the outside, in the outside. The world can be a pretty great place, and you deserve to experience it. So I reached out to George and I said, let's do it, man. Let's do a podcast. I want to talk about this stuff. I want to help people, but I have an ulterior motive. I also need some help myself. I really do. I still have my struggles. So I want to talk to friends. I want to talk to other comics, artists. I want to talk about their struggles, whatever they may be, their trauma, and hear about how they've overcome it, how they've channeled it into their creativity, how they've found a way to live their life where those experiences don't define them. And my first guest is Ari Shaffir, comedian and podcaster. And I can't think of anybody who embodies this better than him. He was raised an Orthodox Jew, and we talk about a lot of parallels between Orthodox Jews and Jehovah's Witnesses. A lot of parallels. It's pretty amazing. And he is somebody who is really not letting that define him. He's living life, man. He's grabbed life by the balls. He travels extensively. He experiences life in to the fullest extent possible, and he's a real inspiration. He's not living in the past. He's not crippled by the way he was raised. He has a new special on his YouTube channel right now, Ari Shaffir Jew, blowing up. Check it out. It's amazing. I had the privilege of seeing him recorded in the flesh, and it's his best work. It's incredible. Please go check it out. And in addition to being a fantastic comic and podcaster, he's a great dude. He's a supermensch, to use a Yiddish term, and he's helped me out tremendously in my career. He gave me my one of my early breaks in stand-up. I was on his show, This Is Not Happening, on Comedy Central. To this day, the biggest thing I've ever done. He's had me on his podcast several times talking about Jehovah's Witness shit. And he's a thrill to talk to, a good dude, good comic. But he's got a lot to offer. So please enjoy my conversation with Ari Shaffir. So you're doing like a crazy junket now, right?
Yeah.
Just hitting all the pods?
Publicist, dude. That's what you got to get. Shit, spilled all that. Yeah. I tell you what, this is what makes my fucking last piece of Judaism fucking live inside me, is that I spilled, and then I don't want to let it ruin the sofa.
Yeah.
My old days of fucking some non-Jew.
Get out the baking soda and seltzer. I imagine Jews invented the baking soda seltzer trick.
I think we had seltzer readily available. No one else had it.
Yeah.
So,
I never drank seltzer growing up. I was always under the impression that it was a Jewish thing. Not that that was a bad thing, but that was the correlation for some reason.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I guess so. I guess it's like the cheapest kind of water you can have.
Enjoyable drink?
High-level drink, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, well, whatever you're doing, man, is working, because this thing is putting up some serious numbers.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I already knew it's kind of popular. I've been promoting it sort of for years, which is cool.
Yeah.
It was like canceled a couple times, but it's third down, no big deal. I think of the first.
Yep.
So yeah, I think people were like sort of looking forward to it, so that helped. And then just all my friends, it's perfect kind of timing for you. Not perfect timing, but good timing for YouTube.
Yep.
As other platforms are kind of getting more censored and people can kind of feel that. YouTube remains one of the last uncensored platforms. Minus, 4 or 5 guys, they're like, we're deplatforming you completely. But besides that, generally, it's like they don't mess with individual works.
Right. And of course, you owe Kanye a debt of gratitude.
Dude, I really was worried. I was worried. It is interesting that he came up and piped up, and then Kyrie's like, let's take it to sports also, not just music.
Yeah.
But I was worried that they react too harshly going the other way. There's this chef guy. I think he makes a line of like pancake mix or something. Black dude. And his logo is himself. It's him with one of those chef hats. And Facebook took it down. They said it's racist. And he goes, "That's me.
Really?
That's me. What do you mean?" And they're like, "Nah, that's a racist photograph. That's like Aunt Jemima. That's like a guy in a chef's hat." He goes, "That's me. I run a fucking cooking company." Bro. And so it's like this idea that they can go too far to correct it is real.
Yeah.
So I was a little worried that they'd be like, "Hey, we're just going to err on the side of like silencing everything even close to anti-Semitism." So I could see people going, "Well, Ari mentions that Jews look inbred or that they're cheap." I don't know, any of the stereotypes. So I was a little worried, but it worked out okay.
Or they think that your thumbnail of your actual face is a caricature.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what my friends always say. They're like, "I look like a Holocaust, caricature. Like, get these. Anything that looks like this, get it."
Yeah, round them up.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
So you're gunning for $6 million.
Gunning for 6.
Are you going to be disappointed when you pass $6 million? Do you want to try to lock it in at 6?
I'll add an
Just
Armenian Holocaust to it.
Visuals?
I'll try to go for I'll do a screenshot if I get exactly 6. Great. I got to be right on there, refreshing, because it goes so fast. That's a problem. but I got to get an exact
Right.
screenshot of 6 million. Yeah, Rogan keeps saying, like, dude, it's going to do so well. Oh my God, you're going to get 8 million views. I was like, close. Do the math again. You're right there. It's like, what do you mean? I think you can get 8 million. I'm like, I know, but there's a joke there. We just redo the math.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like, what? I'm like, it's there on your, pretend you're a comic. Pretend you got it. He said 8
Right?
million
You're
in 6 weeks. I'm like, reverse those. It's right there. 8 million in 6 weeks. How many in 8 weeks? You're there. And yeah.
Yeah, you're just reversing you're just putting your ignorance on full display if you don't know the number.
Yeah.
It's an easy number to remember.
It's very even. It was somebody said recently that he thinks Hitler was like right when he got to 6 million. He's like, that's all we wanted. Stop. Let's not milk this.
Yeah.
We got our number. You know, it's like if you have a workout challenge.
We reached our Kickstarter goal.
So you used to do 50 push-ups. Like, I'm not doing 53. I'm done.
Yeah,
Reach
right.
your Kickstarter goal. Exactly.
Well, I love how. So I was at. How many tapings did you do?
Cuatro.
4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was at. I think I might have been at your last one, the late show on Saturday Late Show, which
Saturday Late Show was
chose-
the second one. I did 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was at the second one. That venue that you chose,
The roulette. Yeah.
It was, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you? I live in that neighborhood. I'm down that block
Oh, really?
all the time. I never knew that place existed, and it was gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, I went looking for stuff. I was supposed to do it at the Skirball last time. I took Michelle Wolf's. She was like, I talked to her about it. She's like, I love it. And she's like, I like it better than the Wilbur in Boston. It's like great big theater that plays like a club. And I was like, damn, interesting. And she's done 2 specials there, so she's had 4 sets at that place. And I'm like, it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid, you know, whatever it is, stamp of approval.
Right.
So I was gonna do it there, and then shit happened before, and they were like, we don't. We lost a lot of money last time on you, so we're not gonna do it again. And I kept trying to get them to do it. They wouldn't. So I went to another scouting location, Webster Hall, and just like stuff that doesn't quite work. And then good venues for rock, you know, the Bowery Electric where Soder did it, which I liked a little bit. And then I walked into this place, the Roulette, and I was like, oh, this is the spot. It's low ceilings with a balcony all around. It's got that nice proscenium, you know, that goes over it like a Roman. I learned that word during this process.
What is it?
Proscenium.
Proscenium.
Yeah.
That's the what is that? That's the border. Was that the border around the balcony that was illuminated?
Yeah, but also just on the stage, it's like up and over. You know.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a frame of the stage.
Right.
It's got like engraved stuff. Looks like Roman.
Yeah.
And I was like, this just looks fucking perfect. And then it brought the idea of the candles like really tight. At the Skirball, it was a very wide stage, so we had to just do some like towers, some individual towers, kind of spaced apart from each other, with wide swatches of darkness. And so we didn't have to do that here. We just punched it all in and got even more candles and just completely filled it in. I loved it.
No, it looked amazing, dude. First thing I thought was how much of his budget was spent on candles and candle lighting services.
Yeah.
That must have taken days.
It was 4 guys that had to light it. And we thought, we also had to source more candles because we tested them. Lauren tested them in her apartment, and it was like, okay, 80 hours.
Yeah.
That's how long they said. It's about 80 hours. It's true. And then we put them in. So whatever. So she got enough candles. And then we put them in the venue and we lit them up, and they started just burning through because of the AC. They just started fucking firing through, and they lasted about 5 hours. And then we were like, fuck, there's no way this is going to last for 4 shows. It won't.
Yeah.
So she had to source 6,000 candles overnight on a Saturday night. Different shapes and sizes, and just like, and reset them all. It was nuts. She was crazy.
Yeah, it looked awesome.
It
man.
did look awesome.
That's
the part that was out of my
effort.
control. I like putting my stamp of approval on it, but you know, I'll not be humble on that because it wasn't me. It was her, Lauren Halpern, and she's fucking great.
Yeah.
And so Sunday, you'll like this. Saturday, so I wanted to do 2 days. Friday was taken. It was for a event. They usually do at the Roulette. They usually do like community music. You know, like Philharmonics and stuff like that. It's not like rock shows. And then occasionally they'll rent it out for like a taping or something like that. Sam Morril taped there, DeStefano taped there, Gary Goldman taped there. I didn't even know. I was at Sam Morril's taping there. I was like, who else have you had here? And they're like, Sam Morril. I was like, I was here. Like, I mean, I was ready to do it. I left not knowing. Because you doll them up. So they couldn't do Friday, and I wanted to do 2 nights, and I didn't want to do weekdays, but they were like Sunday, and I'm like, they're like, we have a church service on Sunday. I was like, fuck, okay.
Oh my God. Let me guess. Was it Witnesses?
I don't think it was Witnesses.
Was it Jehovah's Witnesses? Were they doing a convention?
I don't think
okay.
No. They just have a church service on Sunday, and then my producer Matt was like, well, you know, Christianity is a for-profit business now. Why don't we just offer some profits?
Sure.
And I was like, no, they have a church service. They can't. And he goes, let's just offer them. And so we were like, how much do you guys want to fucking not pray to God this week? And it was they asked for 5,000. We offered them 3, and they took it. No God, $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Money over bitches and money over God.
Oh man, what a world.
That's great.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their price.
Well,
Even the big guy.
I
That's
mean,
great.
you know, God's dead anyway, so he wouldn't mind. What's left about the church?
When's the last time I went to church? 20 years ago?
Wow.
Almost exactly 20 years ago.
You were excommunicated. That's nice for you. You were like, get the fuck out.
I excommunicated myself, similar to you, around the same age too. I left when I was 20. You left when you were 22, 23, right?
Yeah. But I can always just go back. In fact, they're like, come on, come to services this week, come to Shoal this week. But they're not. They're done with you, so there's no pressure.
Well, technically, I'm sure I'm not held in high esteem, but technically I'm labeled inactive, which means I didn't actually do anything to get kicked out.
Oh, that's nice. That's
so
how I
I
am
could
with my
theoretically.
Nice. That's how I am with my publicist sometimes in between stuff. Or my SAG dudes, my Screen Actors Guild. They're like, he's not really working, but he's still one of us.
Yeah. His
so you
name
can come
is
back.
in the roster.
You can come back. That's not bad.
Yeah.
You go to one service, you retire at Jehovah. That's what they do in NFL. They're like, they sign a 1-day contract, so you can retire with the 49ers. You know,
right.
You play with the 49ers for 7 years, and some 2 other teams for a year each. You're like, no, I'm a 49er, but somehow the Hall of Fame has these weird rules where your last team is what you go in with. So you sign a 1-day contract. That's going to be you at Jehovah's. They already got the number.
I'll get buried in a Jehovah's Witness cemetery. I might make the cut for the 144,000. Who knows, man? I'm eligible for all the.
What an even number as well. What an odd even number.
Dude, I loved how you had a great line. So I loved how you were opening it up to the crowd, finding out what everybody's religion was. Because like you said, every religion has crazy shit, right? It's not unique to one religion. And one dude shouted out Jehovah's Witnesses. And you were like, the Harry Potters of Christianity.
That's so weird. It's such a weird story.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, Mormons.
There's a lot of wizardry involved.
144,000 on make believe. It's like so fun. I love it, dude. It's just like politics. I don't follow, but I'm like, I'd rather talk to a QAnon than a fucking Democrat or Republican. Let's have some fun stories.
Oh, sure.
You know, and Jehovah's. And Mormons and the weirdos, the snake charmers. Oh, yeah, give me that over a fucking Lutheran any day.
Right. But the righteousness, too, of like they look down on every other religion. You know, how could you believe that? And then they try to explain what they believe, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like mixing up the pages of a fucking sci-fi book with what's the Scientology book?
Which is sci-fi.
Yeah.
What is it?
Getting dropped into volcanoes and shit.
Yeah.
I know. It's going to bother me for the rest of the podcast. So it's got a name. Yeah, but the book has a name, doesn't it? George knows.
It's Dianetics.
Dianetics. Yes.
Dianetics. Dianetics. Yeah. So here's a fun thing between all the similarities. When you step back, so my friend couldn't tell. He didn't know what alt rock was. I listened to WHFS in DC. It's defunct now, and that was like really an introduction, one of the early K-rock, early like alt rock stations. And he didn't get it. He was listening to classic rock all the time. And I was like, dude, it's not that. Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins. And he was like, I don't get what makes this, because it wasn't his thing. He was listening to Zeppelin and, even some Van Halen and stuff like that. And he goes, oh, Ari, I finally heard a song and I get it now. I get what alternative rock is. And he goes, I don't remember the name of it. And we were at his house, and I was in the kitchen, Georgetown, and he goes, all right, here's his song. Here's his all rock station. And it was Tell Me What You Want by the Spice Girls. And I'm like, Avi, you're way wrong. That's not at all alternative rock. And he goes, what do you mean? And from an outsider, it blends the weirdness because you can't tell the specific differences. And how you, like, if you listen to early Green Day, you're like, I think they sound like they're from England. And you're like, no, you just don't know what punk rock is at all. So this is like pop punk. And it's way different than like No Effects, which is way different than like Sex Pistols or Lagwagon or whatever. And it's like, when you're in it, you can tell the differences. When you're outside, it all looks the same. So the reason I say it is me and my brother went to Israel. The first time I went in 20 years. I went on this tour for my special Ari Shaffir Jew. I was thinking of taping it there. I'll tell you why I couldn't do that after this. But we both went to seminary there, yeshiva in Jerusalem at different times.
You and your brother?
Yeah. And we only went to the Jewish quarter.
He's older or younger?
He's younger.
You have a younger sister?
He's younger. I have an older sister, then my brother,
older sister.
and then my little sister, a few years younger. We were there. Jerusalem split into 4 quarters: Jewish quarter, Arab quarter, Southern Orthodox quarter, like Christian Orthodox, or like Armenian, something like that. I don't know. We only went to the Jewish quarter. There was no reason to go anywhere else. And the Arab quarter was a bit dangerous then. So they're like, don't do that. So we never went. And my brother was like, hey, we're adults now. Neither one of us are religious. Let's check out the Christian quarter. And you're like, yeah, okay, let's do that. Why did we never do that? I mean, there was enough to do in the Jewish quarter with the shuk and all the markets and the Western Wall. And it's just like, so let's go. We went. He made this great. We went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You know what that is?
No.
It's where Jesus was taken down and put on a stone, and they washed his body. Do you know who that is?
Who Jesus is?
Yeah, I don't know how much to catch you up.
I'm vaguely familiar.
Yeah, so they strung him up. They put him on a fucking...
J-dubs are all about Jesus.
Yeah, okay. So they strung him up. He got all sunburned up there, and then he was.
That was his biggest concern.
That was big. He said, "Give me some
was
water."
Like, please.
Yeah.
That's how you knew he was a real Jew.
Yeah.
He's like, I need some SPF.
Mm-hmm. It's Hebrew eat. It's in the mountains. It's thinner air. It fools you. So they washed him on the stone. I guess I learned it there. While I was there, randomly, fun story, ran into Tom Rhodes. I was just walking around, and I heard Ari. I'm like, Tom Rhodes? What? He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I don't know. What are you doing here? He's like, I'm on one of those Jew tours, Avi Lieberman. I took my mom. His mom was there. I was like, what a weird fucking run-in. Anyway, so I'm looking at all the ladies like washing the stone. It's like they mime out like washing Jesus' body, and they're crying. They're really feeling it. I was gonna buy Steve Simone. He's one of my religious friends. I was gonna buy him a fridge magnet from around there. And Tom Rhodes like, no. You buy him a cross. They sell them all over here. You buy him a cross with a little bit of dirt in Jerusalem. You put it on the stone. It soaks up all the powers of Jesus. And then you give it to him. He loved it. I did do that. Took pictures of it on the stone. He said he gave it to his mom when she was dying of COVID. And his mom credits that cross for pulling her through. Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Wow.
She was done. The doctors was like, say goodbye. It's over. And then they had those monoclonal drips, just got legalized in Florida, and it turned her around. And she goes, it was Ari's cross. And I'm like, well, if you believe in that, you got to give Jesus some credit too. Can't just be me. Anyway, but we saw these like priesty guys, and they had these like chains with these like incense balls, these metal incense balls, and they're waving it. And everyone's like miming and doing like hand movements and like, what is it, postulating or whatever. And my brother's like, dude, this is exactly the same as Judaism. If you step back and haven't seen any of it, you'd be like, right, same. But since you're in it, you're like, no, these guys wear a different fucking pointy hat than those guys, or one of them's going forward, the others are going side to side. One uses the incense, another uses the candles. It's the same shit. It's just slightly different.
Which that's what makes it fun. You know what I mean? That's what makes these services kind of enjoyable. It's there's ceremonial kind of approach. There's there's shit to look at. There's stuff to take in. You know, it's a sensory experience.
Yeah.
You know, Jehovah's Witnesses don't have any of that shit.
They
It's
don't.
just some fucking schmuck in a clip-on tie,
Damn.
standing at a podium in a beige carpeted.
So you guys
room.
didn't do songs during services?
We did do songs.
Those are fun.
We did do songs, which there's a whole songbook of Jehovah's Witness original compositions with like 100. I think there's 132 songs.
I want to hear them.
And they just kind of choose them at random. Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
I've gotten way into gospel lately.
I'll send you some. They're great.
Yeah, songs about Jesus I am into.
It's
fun and friendly.
I still will just be walking along and just launch into just one will just pop into my head and I'll be like, we're Jehovah's Witnesses. We speak out in fearlessness. Ours is the God of true prophecy. What he foretells comes to be.
I'm great. Yeah, but I go home, it's the same thing. They go into their songs, and I'm like, I haven't done this shit in 25 years, but I can just sing along with them. As long as they're singing, I can, and they're just weird sounds. It's not English, and it's not even modern Hebrew. It's ancient Hebrew. And I can just sing along with them. Or sometimes Aramaic, and I can just, like, go. That shit's in your head. That shit's burned into your head.
Right? Yeah, totally. Well, that's another thing I want to ask you. So, like, I have, like I said, I have not been to a meeting at the Kingdom Hall in 20 years.
That sounds
so. When I left,
that sounds like a badass place. The Kingdom Hall. That's cool.
The Kingdom Hall.
That is cool.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You step back from it and you see it from the outside. That's what I did in Jew in that special I did. Is that I was able to start looking at this shit again that I hadn't thought about for a while, and now I have a fresh. It's one part I cut out of the special is like why I'm looking at this, but I'm like I have a fresh adult mind. And I'm re-examining this stuff that I hadn't thought about in a long time. I had 2 bits about setting it up that I was like, I don't need this in here. But it was how like now that you're older and you look back in high school and you're like, oh, I could have fucked that shit. I didn't realize it was coming on to me. I didn't have the know-how to read what flirting was back then. And then you don't think about it. And then when you think about it, you're like, oh right, you constantly touch my ankle, in my knee and stuff. You were hitting on me, or that now I'm an adult. You got kids, right?
Yeah, I have 1 kid, yeah.
How old is he?
7.
Here's what I realize now. My parents knew when I was lying to them every time. And I thought I had them fooled. I thought I was so fucking smart, and I was a dumb fuck. Just saying, I brushed my teeth. My mom's like, your toothbrush is dry. I'm like, no. And it's like, what a fucking cunt.
You know what it was?
What?
You know what it was? Which if they're anything like me, you admire the attempt.
Exactly.
You know?
But also, like, do you have no respect for me? I mean, like, make a lie better. They're just not equipped. It's like when they write a paper. When they get into 4th grade, and they're like, what do you think? I got an A+. And you're like, this is shitty writing. You're in 4th grade.
Right.
This is not good writing. It's good for you, for a dumb fuck.
Your teacher should have higher standards.
Exactly. So it's that looking at old stuff with a fresh mind. I just did this at the Comedy Store where I thought Mitzi was torturing me. I was doing it with my friend Matt Egger. We're both Comedy Store comics. And I was like, she wouldn't pass me. Everyone's like, it's so unfair. And then you're like, how long into comedy were you when you finally got past? I was like 4.5 years. And I'm like, damn, that's not very long. I was a sucky just past open micer at 4.5 years. And I thought she should have passed me at a year in. And looking back on it now, I'm like, no, I was terrible. I must have been, I was just good for all the other 4-year comics.
Sure.
So
in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you look back on this religious shit and you're like, the Kingdom Hall is a cool name for a building. It's better than shul.
It is. And the whole idea of believing that the world is going to end at Armageddon, I mean, it's fucking
badass.
metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We don't have that.
It is.
We don't have that. We're going to get some fucking rabbi with curly fries fucking coming down and saying, hey, we're ready. Lame.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, lame. Nobody's dead. No rapture.
So when you, like,
what if people...
This special is...
Yeah, sorry. I'm saying, if I know the rapture's coming, I'm tying ropes to every fucking Christian who I think is good, and then just locking them in there. Locking them in. They get pulled up, they're only going so high, and then we're going to fucking rappel right up with them. And then cut it, and just zoom it up. You're gonna be wrong. You're like Obama.
Like some environmentalist chaining himself to a sequoia.
You're like Obama's
Yeah.
good, and then like the rapture comes and he's like not rising. Like, what happened? You're like drone deaths. And he's like, oh right. Fuck, you got me on that. A lot of murders, I guess technically. I legalized gay marriage. You're like, yeah, that's a negative. And he's like, fuck.
Yeah. Like you said, no butt fucking.
Nobody, yeah.
God hates butt fucking.
Yeah.
Universal to all. So, but like, you know, I have everything that I learned as a kid. You know, there's brainwashing. It's just relentless brainwashing. It just gets in there.
It gets in
and
there.
Believe it or not, 20 years later, there's honestly very little that I remember. I kind of find myself questioning their doctrines and principles all the time. And I'm wondering, like, this special is extremely educational. Like, you are really debunking a lot of myths. You are mapping out their belief system. It really is. It's you learn a lot about Judaism in this special. Did you truly remember all that shit, or did you have to take kind of a deep dive again and re-immerse yourself?
I had to re-immerse myself. It was an interesting process. I guess not many people would understand this, except you. No offense, George.
Yeah.
I did have to re-immerse myself. I found out some things I was wrong about. I just assumed were correct because, you know, the highest level Rebbeim, the highest level scholars know 98% of it, you know? So I had some shit I learned when I was 12 that I was like, no, you didn't quite get that story right, you know?
Right.
I'm an American. I don't know all the filibuster rules, you know? I kind of know them. If I had to explain it to a non-American, I'd get it 80% right, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had to re-immerse myself. And the hard part was, some of it, I had rabbis showed up at my shows. My friend David Mark, my last religious friend from yeshiva, he showed up and he told me, he was like, the sex to a sheet, that's wrong, that's a myth. And I'm like, no way, man, you're wrong. And he goes, I'm telling you, it's a myth. And I'm like, no way, it's a real thing. And then I had to look at, that's in the joke, that I was like, I thought it was true until I was doing the special.
Yeah.
But the laws themselves, I had to re-immerse myself. So every time I saw, like, you know, all the Jews walking around on a weekday, I'm like, oh, today's a holiday. And I'd explain to my non-Jewish friends, like, what day is today? And I'd start talking about it. And I'd be like, remember it. And they're like, why do you do this? I'm like, oh, it's because you're celebrating this thing. And they're like, why is that? I'm like, oh, yeah, well. And then as you're, like, rethinking it, you start to remember things and you start to re-examine it. The hard part was, I've never done stand-up like this before, where, like, I'm not living as me. I'm living through the eyes of a dead guy. That guy's not around anymore.
Wow.
So it was a very lonely process. It wasn't me now, my feelings now. My feelings about this thing, but this thing's not in my life, you know?
Right.
My feelings now about traffic, sure, okay, you know, yeah, I'll be angry at traffic, whatever, but, like, that guy's still alive who hates traffic, even though he doesn't drive anymore. It's like, that guy's still alive. But this guy's not alive anymore. So I was living with a ghost for fucking 5 years. With no one to comment on except me.
It's like you really are. You have to kind of look at it objectively, and yeah, it's like it's a different person, and it's almost like you're telling a story of someone else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know if I could have done it for a long time. I remember doing a joke about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict early on at the Comedy Store when I started comedy, and I had lived in Israel, I guess, for 4.5 years of college. Came right from Israel, so I mean, this was 5 years removed from living there, you know, not that long. And I started doing it, and it was like, you know, it's tough because the Jews feel that it's their land, and the Palestinians feel it's their land, and they're both, you know, they both have good points. And then, you know, on one side, it's like they want peace. The other side, they're fucking animals. They don't fucking like us. You know, and they're like, okay. There was just too much rage still there. So I wasn't removed enough from it. And now I'm more removed from it, so I can comment on it. I went through a hatred period. I don't know if you did that with religion. Every time I saw a religious person, like, you're a fucking idiot. You're wasting your fucking life. And then eventually, you know, it started with agnosticism. Then it went to full atheism when I grew up a little bit. And then it went to, like, a don't care thing where I'm, like, irrelevant, you know? It's kind of like, what do you feel the best system of government is? I'm like, I don't feel. I don't care. I don't vote. I don't care. So it's like, it's like, I don't know what, they need another term. Agnostic, atheist, and, like, what, guys, get the fuck away from me. You know? Was 9/11 an inside
Yeah.
job? Was it a terrorist attack? Or like, I don't give a shit. I never went to that part of New York. There's a reason to go, a great memorial. There was no reason to go before.
Yeah.
So it
Never went to that part of New York. Yeah, the whole tip, snip it off.
yeah.
Circumcise the lower portion of Manhattan
A lot
entirely.
of successful Jews, and that's about it. So it's like it's just like I went through these periods of hatred, and then I came out of it where like, so I could talk about it now where I'm not hateful of it. It's just, some of it's funny, some of it's unique, and also I could say what the good parts are. So what's in you? You went to school, you were raised in it for 18 years. The shit that's not gone from you, besides the occasional song that you'll remember, is that you are a good person. You were raised with the tenets of Jesus. Because when you see a good Christian, Steve Simone is my example. He's a comedian. He'd probably be a good example of someone to get on this podcast. He's still religious, still goes to church. And he doesn't preach. He just lives by example. He volunteers his time at Children's Hospital, doesn't rub it in your face. He runs like charity drives to help these people who are like going broke because their kids are having these crazy surgeries and whatever, and just to raise enough money for a pizza party for them or something like that. And he cares, and he's not shoving it down your throat. He's just doing it. And you're like, where are you going? It's like, I gotta go. We went to Denver together. You open him. It's like, let's go to breakfast. He goes, I gotta do something first. I was like, what? I'm like, let me hit church. I'll be right back. But he doesn't act like he's a better person than you. He's a good Christian, And then when you see somebody giving charity, like, what makes you do that? And I guess you could find out, oh, it's these tenets of Jesus. And then there's all these other types of, Christ that are like proselytizers and look down on you. And that's the bad religion. They think they're better than you.
Right.
So you have in you, and I have in me, this thing that won't go away. That when you see an old woman behind you, as you're going into a store, you will hold the door open for them.
Sure.
That's just in you. You don't know why. Yep. It's because, and this is what I was able to examine in this hour of comedy available on YouTube right now, Ari Shaffir, is the good shit that came out of it. There is good things. Religion is not bad. It does give you a sense of community. It gives you a goodness. It's not all this terrible, judgy, traditions and weirdness. There are solid things. Like what I say about Noah at the end, I was like, these are good lessons. Don't write off people that have different viewpoints of you. It's more relevant now than ever. Just because they're wildly different. God would say, go try to get them back. Where we see Jordan Peterson going to talk to like alt-right people and trying to convince them to come back. And people are like, why are you associating with them? And it's like, why not try to win them back to normal society?
They're human beings too. Talk to them as such. You might make some headway.
Yeah, you might make some headway, but it's like...
Probably not, but maybe.
You might save one. Remember American History X? Like he had to go to jail after a curb stomping. It's not real, but like...
Sure.
But eventually he was like, oh, blacks are humans. I get it. The song, Amazing Grace. You know that song? Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. What is it? That saved a wretch like me. I once was blind. But now I see.
How sweet the sound?
That's a former slave trader. And he's singing about how he now sees them as human beings. So if you write that guy off, you don't get this amazing song. Not that it's worth it, but he came to the light himself. He eventually...
So wait, I think you cut out for a second. The guy who wrote that song, what? He was a sex offender? I missed what you said about him.
He was a slave trader. Probably a sex offender as well. Those slave
trader. Okay.
Yeah, didn't go like, I'm gonna be cool with my slaves. He kidnapped humans, put him in prison against their will, and probably fucked a bunch. But he eventually came to the light, and we no longer give people the ability to do that. So these are good tenets of religion, to be like, welcome them back, let them come back. It's the only way to fucking win this war, is to let them come back. You guys have a box. Not you, but other Christians have a box to jump into when you're ready to come back. You will fuck up, and they have a box there already.
Right.
Saying you're not perfect. The point is you're not perfect. We had a dude fucking get strung up because you're not perfect. So go into the box and say, hey, I fucked up. Can I come back to the table? And they go, yeah, you can come back to the table. Thanks for admitting it. Thanks for saying you're sorry. You
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
anyway, that shit's in
Well, that's
that
the
shit's
thing.
in me.
Almost. Yeah. Yeah. And almost every religion preaches acceptance and forgiveness, but they also there's a lot of hypocrisy there where there's so much judgment, looking down on other religions, thinking
Yeah.
that everybody else is wrong, everybody else is going to die
Yeah.
because they don't know the truth, right?
It's the
But
difference between the
yeah, I
church and the
absolutely agree
religion.
with you. Yes.
The church is
Yeah.
one thing,
Yeah,
the religion's
that's
another.
true.
The religion preaches like tolerance or whatever, and the church comes in and is like, let's go to war. And you're like, that's because the humans aren't,
Yeah.
they're more fallible than the God, which I don't believe in, but like,
Right.
it makes more sense.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know until recently, Jehovah's Witnesses are, I think, largely considered to be this harmless, Christian sect that goes door to door and they have smiles on their faces and they're just like good, upstanding people. And that largely, believe it or not, is true. They are very more, I do attribute honesty and my just being a well-mannered person to that. I really do. They're moral, upstanding people.
Yeah.
Yes, they do have they shun people. I've seen it destroy families. I've seen people just completely go off the rails and become either alcoholic or drug addict or suicidal from all the repression. They also, I didn't know they fuck a bunch of kids too. I mean, Catholics are still,
Number one.
Catholics are
They're
the
number
ones that
one,
are gonna
yeah.
have their jerseys retired. But yeah,
But
Jehovah's
others are out
Witnesses,
there.
believe
Yeah,
it or not,
yeah.
they're in there.
There's
Yeah,
Division
yeah.
2 champs. Yeah, here's the difference. Here's the people ask me like, well, there's Jewish rabbis who fuck kids or whatever, and it's like, yeah, here's the difference. We report them to the police, and they get arrested, they go to jail, and we get them away from our kids. Whereas the Catholic Church just transfers them and hopes for the best because they don't want to be embarrassed. So they just let them rape kids
Yeah.
other places. They cover it up. It's not that there's not monsters. There's fuck up genetically. The iPhone's at an 80% fucking, correct rate. 20% of iPhones are made
Yeah.
faulty by accident. Humans are about the same. Maybe 5%. They get monsters at 5%. But report them and get rid of them. Whereas the Catholics like, no, don't be embarrassed. It's like that fucking blue wall of silence where a cop can't report another cop. But it's like, no, if he's bad, get rid of him.
Yeah, move them to a parish with uglier kids.
Yeah,
They'll
exactly.
be fine.
That's what you gotta do. Exactly.
Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, similarly, they don't report these
They don't.
cases
That's
because
not
they
good.
think we leave it in God's hand. God knows what to do. And they also have this crazy fucking rule. There's a 2-witness rule that any time a Jehovah's Witness accuses another witness of any sort of injustice, whatever it may be, there has to be 2 witnesses that have seen this instance take place, or it's not viable.
But you're not going to
Because
you're
as
not
you
gonna
know,
have two
everybody
witnesses.
fucks kids in front of an audience.
Yeah. And also,
Right?
if you are, let's just say you are. Let's say it's a fuckathon. Those guys are
Yeah.
going to be quiet. Those guys are like, I'm not telling on my buddy. He's going to tell on me.
They're just waiting their turn.
Yeah, exactly. Damn. That does suck. But
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you can focus on that all you want, but also you can focus on some of the good stuff. I
Right,
heard some
right.
story once, but it was this gamer, this game blogger, video gamer, and she was reviewing Miss Pac-Man in the context of females in general in video games. So Lara Croft was a big one, and Miss Pac-Man is a big one. She goes, so either they are sex symbols, or they are just straight female versions of the male counterpart, with no thought on their own. So Lara Croft is a sex symbol. She's got to wear short shorts and a fucking booty shirt in order to fucking, like Indiana Jones didn't have to do that. Or Miss Pac-Man is just Pac-Man with a bow. And then the win they get, if she wins, is she gets to get married to Pac-Man, to her exact counterpart. There's nothing new to her in any way. So she goes, by the way, and this is the point I want to make, she goes, you can be against a small part of something and still be for the good parts. She goes, I'm not writing off Miss Pac-Man as a bad game. It is a fun game. I just have a problem with this part, which I think has been lost in a lot of American discourse. You can write off a small part of your religion and still enjoy other parts. You can write off a major part of your religion and still enjoy small parts of it.
Sure.
Like I say on stage,
Yeah.
COVID was bad, but some people who died were cunts. So you could focus on those.
Wow.
and be like, oh, sweet, nice job, monkey, or whatever. Well, that was AIDS, whatever it was, anteater. You can focus on that. You don't have to write it all up. Yeah.
Keep going. Go through the entire animal kingdom. You'll get there.
Wasn't it a bat fucked an anteater or something? I don't know.
Bat.
So yeah, the child rape is wrong, but it doesn't negate the good stuff. And so you can do both. Everyone does this thing where it's like Democrats are all correct, Republicans are all wrong, or vice versa. You're like, nah, you could fuck up here or there. And then when you don't do that, I'm always on the outside going, none of you guys are honest. I can't trust any one of you because you won't admit to your faults.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the point you hope to get to. That's when you know you're actually awake to what's happening. When you realize that all parties are fucked up and you just gotta,
Yeah, they ask about Israel all the time. I get asked to be an expert. I'm like, I don't know about Israeli politics. I say it on stage sometimes, not on this special Ari Shaffir Jew on YouTube now. But in general, they're like, how do you feel about it? I'm like, I'm voting this country. I don't know what's happening in that country. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, it's not like I don't care. I just don't have caring in me for it. I'm not callous. It's just like, guys, this isn't, I don't care about hockey either. But good luck with it. Yeah. I'm not against it.
And tell me if you feel the same. I feel like a lot of my caring was used up already.
Yep.
Just by proxy of being, raised the way that I was. Exactly. The way you were. You know what I mean?
I have no more tears. You guys all cry. Not you, but you guys all cried when George Bush got elected and said he's Hitler. And then you cried when he got reelected and said he's Hitler. And I'm like, we're not saying this yet. And you called Trump Hitler. And you're like, what about Bush? Like, no, but really this time. And again, no, none of these are true.
You're like, what about Hitler?
Yeah, what about Hitler? Why don't you just get he's a bad guy? Why do you got to compare him to the all-time great? They did this with Jerry Stackhouse and said he's the new Jordan. And then it's like, he's just an all-star, maybe a Hall of Famer. It's just not fair to him, Yeah, they both played at Carolina. They both jump well. But, give them a break.
Yeah.
You're losing us.
So your dad, your grandfather and your dad are both Holocaust survivors, right?
Yeah, grandmother, both
your dad.
My aunts.
Your dad escaped a work camp, and your grandfather escaped a death camp. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not 100%. It's congealed in my head. My dad and his mom and his sisters were in a work camp, and I think my grandfather was in a death camp. I'm pretty sure, or a concentration camp of sorts. I don't know them all and exactly what department they were in, but it was a few weeks before the end when the Russians came.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you
funny
left,
things when I'll shit on American military. It's so fun, especially on Veterans Day. I'll post a picture of a fucking Vietnam. It's my favorite because they're not that proud of it. Vietnam, that in Vietnam, stomping on a villager. And then I'm like, heroes, everybody. And they'd be like, fuck you. And it's like, but you helped us to free your grandfather. You begged us when you freed your grandfather from the Holocaust. I'm like, what do you mean? The Russian military? And they're like, fuck you. I'm like, it wasn't the Americans. I don't know what to tell you.
Jesus.
Yeah, so they were in the Holocaust. My dad was young.
So that must have really amplified things, though, when you left, right? I would imagine that your dad probably had a stance of geez, I maintained my faith even under the most extreme persecution, and you're just walking away from this.
I don't think it was related to that. I think it was just, I am religious. No? It's same as yours. And what the fuck are you doing? It's like if you're religious and your son comes out gay. It's like, what? No. It's just you just can't accept that it's going to be different. Eventually you do come to accept it. That's still my son. My dad's cool about it now, doesn't really care. But I don't think it was all, because a lot of people after the Holocaust, this is a weird situation. They didn't lose faith. They decided God was a cunt. They still believed. And they go, you let that happen? Then they became mad at God. There were a lot of people there is no God if this could happen. But it's a very weird thing where no, I still believe there's a God. So what the fuck is wrong with you? That you would let, millions of Jews die. Millions of fucking everything. Gay people get rounded up and murdered. It's what the fuck's wrong with? So that's a weird reaction. So no, my leaving I don't think was affected by the Holocaust.
Right.
But
yeah,
it was definitely a part of our life. We definitely couldn't waste food. That was definitely part of the Holocaust. When my aunt would put food on my plate and put seconds on my plate, and I would finish half the seconds on Dutch. it's just like, what the fuck? It was just like, you can't leave food.
Sure.
I'm like, why'd you put it on there? I wasn't hungry. But it was like, do
Well,
not waste.
Depression era combined with Holocaust survivor.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly. Then growing up in Israel with this
You
not
might-
much.
surprised they didn't make you eat the plate.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
nothing wasted. Well, I had a bit of a revelation while watching your special too, because when thinking about the Holocaust and as a Jehovah's Witness, I remember countless meetings we would have talking about staying strong in the faith and maintaining your steadfast devotion to Jehovah, because there may come a time where we are persecuted, where we're all rounded up and be like, you guys can't believe this. We're all going to be murdered or thrown in a prison or something. And the whole time I was growing up being taught this, I thought, that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Why would that ever happen? And then watching your special, I was like, that did happen.
All right. Oh, wow.
That did happen.
Yeah, my dad
So
did
that could
speeches
have,
at the memorial, at the Holocaust Memorial. For a while, he really didn't talk about it. I remember when Schindler's List came out. These are vague memories, so I'm not positive this is true, but I remember him going like, nah, like, I'll remember it my own way. I don't need a dramatized version of it. Like, I have firsthand accounts. And he didn't, but then he started talking more. I don't know what changed him. And he started talking more about it. And then he started volunteering at the Holocaust Memorial. And he'll give first person accounts. And what's weird is you get these like kids on like a trip to DC, from Kansas City, inner city kids sometimes. And they'll like, you have the idea of the Holocaust, but then when you hear someone actually talking about it, you're like, oh shit, this is real. Like, it's real, but it just feels like history. And then when you're like,
totally,
oh,
yes,
there's a guy who was fucking beaten up. It's like, oh, motherfucker, that's bad.
right.
Yeah, it can happen.
That's why it's
Wasn't
cool
that long ago.
I know, exactly. In the grand scheme, when you're a little kid, the 40s feels like
Doesn't feel real. Yeah.
Eons ago.
Yeah.
It might as well be when the dinosaurs existed. And then you get older and you're like, oh, that was that recent. That's crazy.
So here's something I try to do in my stand-up. I don't always get there, but I try to in general. Is I've noticed that, like, if you go, guys do this, girls do this, that's fine. It's a decent like angle on a joke, But what could be more rich? Let's say it's like I remember this old, like, I don't know who it was, maybe Tim Allen was like, men will just use the dryer, just throw a shirt in the dryer like it's clean, whereas women will be like, no, you have to wash a shirt, and like we're just idiots. But what's richer than that is going, I will sometimes just throw a shirt in the dryer and call it clean. And then the men in the audience can just relate to that. So it's a very specific example. And then if I'm in the audience, not as him, I'm just me, I'm like, oh, I can relate to that too. Or the women can go, I dated a guy like that, So you go very specific and then everyone can relate. So what I was hoping to do in this special, Ari Shaffir Jew, it's available on YouTube right now, is to be specific, but then have people like you kind of illuminate your own religion a little bit. Where I'm doing specific stuff about Judaism, but also like that's just one example of this wildness. So like, that's why I even said it outright. I'm like, go think about your own crazy shit. You have it.
Yep.
And I was surprised to find out certain things were like in both, like the rib thing. I had so many Christians in the audience go like, I didn't know that either. I thought it was less ribs.
I never heard that before. You were actually told that men had less ribs.
There's Judeo-Christian similarities, and just like, and in general, just like, oh, that's a wild thing. Oh, I have a wild thing as well. So that's one of the things I'm hoping that it came through in the special, is that it's not just about Judaism. It's about your childhood and your upbringing, everyone's upbringing, which is why I paid a shitload of money for this song at the end. It was Go Down Moses by Louis Armstrong, because it's about a Jewish, historical thing, but it's this jazzy song by a very clear non-Jew, and this black culture related to Judaism and their slavery, and it's like we can relate to that, and so I could have gotten a Jewy song, sung by a Jew, but I'm like, no, this is like shows kind of a universality to it, where this black guy in New Orleans can like relate to my story that I've talked about as an Orthodox Jew. And so like, just like, you know, go out from there.
Yeah, everybody can find parallels to the way that they were raised, for sure.
Yeah.
So like one thing that I really admire about you is that when you seem to, I'm sure you know, like you said, you've had your anger, your resentment over the way that you were raised, and of course you have to have that when you get out of there, and you realize all that you've missed out on. But you, more than anybody I know, I think have fucking grabbed life by the balls. You fucking travel extensively. You go off the face of the earth. You go off the grid. You chuck your cell phone in a garbage can when you go to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it, like you still are struggling with feeling like you're at a deficit growing up that way, or do you feel like it empowered you in a way and gave you a perspective and an outlook on life that you would not have had otherwise?
I think some of it is like a or trying to catch up. I don't know if it's rebellion, but trying to catch up. I'm a bit of a whore. I think that was trying to catch up, where it's like no sex till 23, then like very little sex till 28, 29, and then it's like, oh, let's fuck,
Right. Yeah, because you don't know how to do it. Of course you want to catch up. You're like, oh, I'm really
this
bad
is
at
wild.
this.
I joke about it. It's like trying, when you have bacon, you come to bacon in your mid to late 20s. It's like, what the fuck? Where you grew up with bacon, like, oh, bacon's good. But an Orthodox Jew who fell respects bacon on another level. That look of Steve Carell when he finally gets laid in 40-year-old virgin. It's like, that was sex for me. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it doesn't get hit in your formative years where you get used to it. It gets hit, I don't know, whatever. So some of that, I think the leaving everything behind, I think some of it comes out of me leaving this like life behind, this Jewish life. And some of it comes up, like my dad did the same thing. He spread his wings, came to America after the army, just to make a life for himself and wanting to explore and do new things. And that's what I did. I went to California from the East Coast to try to like make something of myself. I don't think it was related to my Judaism. I think it was just like genetically, maybe Shaffir's got that, a little bit of like, just fly, just get lost. I don't know. But some of it also is the Gemara, the Talmud, it preaches logic and breaking things down into an argument, which made me actually quite good at being an English major, where you're just analyzing like literary works. It's the same training.
Yeah.
And so some of it is like, my career's going well and I want to see the world. Why wouldn't I just go see the world? And Comedy Central's like, you can't go. We're going to be mad at you. And I'm like, guys, thank you, but I don't live for you. I live for me. And this Talmud was able to let you really analyze stuff without emotion. Some people call it autism.
Right.
But, we got one life, man. So let's have some fun.
Yeah, exactly. And finding that balance. If you're not living your life and having experiences, you're not going to be a very compelling, interesting performer.
Exactly. You're going to do all your bits about stand-up.
You're speaking for a living. You got to give yourself something to speak about.
Yeah. I don't say you got to go to a shitty, boring wedding so you can have a bit about it. But if you are stuck at a boring wedding, then may as well write a bit about it. And the more new, unique things you enter yourself into, the more, you'll have to draw from.
So you've been out for quite some time. Did you know as soon as you started stand-up that you were going to do an entire show about this? No,
I didn't think to do anything about Judaism for a while, until I realized, like, I would do jokes about it here or there. Because
you just wanted to move on and be normal, right?
I do jokes about, when I started, I was like, what is a comedian supposed to do? I do jokes about Monica Lewinsky, and like, I didn't know anything. Yeah. And then I became the Jew in my friend group. I didn't realize how I'm like, aren't there a lot of Jews in stand-up? My friend Freddie Soto, like one of my mentors, he was like, yeah, but look at you, dude. And I was like, all right, fair, I guess. Bobby Lee called me propaganda. So like I would do jokes about it here or there, but no, not until I went to Edinburgh. And I saw their themey hours, that I started thinking like, I could do this. What should my theme be? what should my story be? And then I tossed a lot of ideas around in my head, and then this sort of solidified as like something I could really talk about, because I did a podcast once for my friend Benji's place in LA. I was just breaking down like an outro of a podcast. I was breaking down the Passover story. Passover was coming up, and I was like, oh, let me tell you what happened. And I it was like my first like dive into it, where I broke it down just as a non-affiliated person with severe knowledge of the story. And so as I was saying, the 10 plagues, you know these, right? You guys had them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure.
And so when God hardened Pharaoh's heart, I got to this part where God, I don't know what number it was, but you know, the before the firstborn died, it was like locusts, frogs, the blood turned to the river turned to blood, darkness. At some point, Pharaoh, the leader of the Egyptians, was like, "Fuck these people; they're not worth it." I don't know. Maybe he's real, maybe not. Even before that, when Moses like takes a staff and throws it down, turns into a snake, and Pharaoh's like, "Our guys can do that. It's just a trick." And then Moses like, "Can you turn it back into a staff?" And he goes, "Nah, we don't have that one." But it's still like, I was just breaking it down like a fun story. But when at some point Pharaoh was like, "Get out of here. We're done with you." And then it says, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And as I was saying this, just in a riff, I was like, man, when you think about it, this fight was over. So the next, I think, 4 or 6 plagues was all on God. It was done. They were ready to say, get out of here. Goodbye. So the firstborn of the Egyptians didn't have to happen. God was like a warring God, an anti-apology God. Pharaoh was like, get out of here. And then it was like, I said it was like, as if you're like, you and George get into a fight, right? Like a fist fight, you get broken up. And they're like, all right, break it up. And then as you're ready to move on with your life, I lean into you, and I'm like, hey, Doug, George called you a faggot. And they're like, what? And then you just get back in there and start fighting again. You know, I mean, it was over. And God made it continue. So all these other few plagues didn't have to happen. And that was the first instinct of breaking this down on an adult, modern level that I hadn't done before. And so they just stuck in my head. I'm like, oh, let me do this for other holidays. I think I did one for Purim, where it was like, they just made this chick pretend she wasn't Jewish for a while and fuck this king. And so hopefully one day they were like, hey, we're going to wipe out the Jews. She goes, oh, I'm a Jew. Maybe you shouldn't do that. He goes, all right. Jews can fight back. Tell you what. Just these dumb stories. And then when I decided, I went to Edinburgh, I just did my storytelling show there. And then I saw these things and I'm like, I want to do one like this. And so I had a 2 Edinburgh plan of one to go there and show them what an American hour is like, just jokes all the way through. And then the next time, go show them what their hours would look like from an American, from a far better comedian.
Not just somebody
it was a
sobbing about their life story on stage.
Not getting serious for 20 minutes in the middle of it. We are far ahead of UK comedy. I'd say about 15 years ahead. Doesn't mean they don't have great comics, but as a whole, we're about 15 years ahead of them. It's not their fault. They came out of theater. We came out of the soil. So I wanted to show them, like, don't think you're better than us. You're actually far worse than us. And the only thing they could do is, well, you do this. I could, all comics do that sometimes. Instead of jokes, they'll just have moral high ground. And you're like, let's find a moral high ground, but still do the jokes. And they go, we don't have to. We'll just say we're better because we have a moral high ground. And you're like, doesn't mean you shouldn't do the jokes. And so that's what they do in the UK. They're like, well, Americans, maybe they have a lot of laughs, which is the only God we really worship. But they go, but we have a theme. We have a story. We have an arc to our thing. And I'm like, yeah, but why are you serious? Why you have this 20 minutes? Why isn't it 18 minutes? Why isn't it 12 minutes? How did you decide on this long of serious, saying I finally found my dad's love, or that's when I realized I was a man? Like, why? You're not even considering it. You've seen these great theme hours. You've seen a couple once on Netflix, and people are like, wow. But I don't think they thought out why they were serious for this long. And then I saw people like Miss Pat skate over her rape. Like she was raped as a kid, and she never stops being funny as she talks about it. She doesn't not do it. She does it through the art form she mastered, stand-up comedy. So it's like, that's how you can be. So I wanted to minimize these fucking serious parts, show these motherfuckers what a real stand-up comedy hour would be, So they can't look down on us anymore. They can't go, well, we do a theme, you don't do a theme. Well, guess what? We can do themes too, and we're going to do it far funnier than you fucking motherfuckers. We're 15 years behind us. God save the Queen.
Amen. And finding punchlines in the sadness. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if you're a really adept comic, you will find a way to make everything funny. And
be
you had
anti-war.
one
Write an
point.
anti-war song. Yeah, go ahead.
You had one point in the special where you get a big laugh, and then you say, when I was 22, 23, I had a crisis of faith. I stopped believing in God. And I remember watching that, be like, oh wow, is he about to get serious for the next, few
20
minutes?
Yeah.
And you did. You immediately turned it around from that
Yeah.
line to, I stopped believing in God, which is, kind of a problem in the religion.
Right away. Yeah, write a
right?
joke. It's like
Yeah.
it's an important part.
It's a big part of it. Yeah.
And so it's like, why gets
It's an important part.
I saw one great. They're starting to get it in the UK. They're starting to understand. So I saw this comic, Garrett Miller, and he wrote an hour about trying to have a kid with his wife. And in the interim of getting his wife pregnant, writing this hour, what they do well there is they're young comics. They're 5-6 year comics. Write a new hour every year, and so they're far ahead of our comics on that front. 3 years in, they write an hour. Till they're 4 years in, they write a new hour, and they're not special worthy, but they're writing a new hour and they're performing a new hour, and we don't do that. So Garrett wrote this hour about having a kid, and his wife was pregnant and getting ready for the thing, and she was going to give birth about a month or two after Edinburgh. Now, a month before Edinburgh, his wife had a miscarriage, and so he couldn't do this expectant, excuse the pun, hour of comedy about this thing he was looking forward to, because it's a lie.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's a lie. It's a very big lie. It's not like doing a fucking fun thing about finding a girl and then also, well, we broke up, but I'll just leave that part out. It would be so false to be like, I can't wait to have this kid knowing your kid's dead, And so he had to put that in there. So he rewrote some stuff. And as he did it, he goes, so then, we went to the hospital where it's like there was some issues, having trouble. And then like doctor had to call me in and he told me like, we lost the baby. And he goes, it was so cool. He goes, guys, I'm not going to stay in this very long. I just have to mention it. Don't worry. I'm going to be in and out of this in no time, but I got to say it. And he goes, and it was tough. It was for sure tough. But seriously, I'll be out. And he was out of it in about a minute. And it was like, good on him for not fucking torturing us with seriousness. These are comedy shows. So they're starting to get it a little bit. You can do it. We are the funniest people in the world. We are stand-up comedians. If you can't make this funny, then what hope do we have?
Yeah.
Jordan's
Don't bother.
Cry.
Well, another thing, man, like my wife sent me a clip of you on Rogan. I don't know when this appearance was, because I know you guys are buddies. I know you've been on the show many, many times, but
Shows the man.
My wife adores you, by the way. If she leaves me for anybody, it's going to be you. She's like, oh my God, he travels. He's into psychedelics. He's so interesting. She
I don't fuck anyone who won't have an abortion.
She will. One kid's all she wants.
All right.
You talking about, I think it was your ayahuasca experience and having this revelation about orbs. Do you remember talking about that?
Yeah.
About these orbs that you release into the universe in terms of your creativity and creating these you as a person, you're gonna ebb and flow. You're gonna do some things that are better than others. But I think you referenced like Nirvana, Nevermind. Not everything Nirvana did was fantastic, but it was the right time, the right place, and they created this thing that is just this perfect orb, like you said, that just exists now in the universe.
Nailed it. It's just these moments of nailed it. And it doesn't necessarily,
Exactly.
I see it probably through the lens of an artist, so I'll see Nirvana.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that fucking killed. And these are the things that generally make me cry when I see them.
Yeah.
Where I just get overcome. The Cigar de Familia in Barcelona. This guy, Gaudi, designed a church, and he goes, it's going to take about 400 years to make. Technology has upped that number a little bit, made it a little faster. So they're near completion after 200 years. It's so overwhelmingly beautiful that you just like start bawling. Or at least I did when I see it. It's just like nailed it. And these moments don't have to be big moments too. Like I say, like this guy at Disney's haunted mansion. I don't want to get too like, oh, I'm this perfect thing. This guy's at Disney's the haunted ride, whatever it was, the Nightmare Before Christmas, whatever it was in Disney in Anaheim. He was like trying to be spooky. He's like, this way to the chair, because I was like, be careful out there. And then I turned to my chick I was dating. I was like, damn, that guy's fucking like he's in character. And then he just, I guess he heard that I was saying it. And then he popped his head back and put his head right next to mine. I was turned, I didn't see. And he goes, pardon me. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude. And it's like, nailed it. You fucking nailed it in that moment. And every time you nail it, I'm telling you again, I see it through the artist of a lens of an artist, but it might be a fucking perfect law case, you know, or a garbage man that didn't have a single bag break in his entire run, got everyone in the fucking, you know, truck perfectly, separated the cans for the whatever, just like, I'm nailing it. A 7 under and the Masters, you know, just you nailed it. You create in the behind life, you know, behind the veil, this thing that I'll call them like orbs, and they just kind of live on in eternity. I would assume making a child would be on that, you know, where you've created something better than you, that you've made this great thing and raised it. And so it could be over a lifetime, like Cigar de Familia. It could be a moment like that guy at Disney's Haunted Mansion, but nailed it. A great riff on stage. Sometimes a great 15-minute set where I saw a guy once, Jonathan Gottsick, he was crushing a door guy at the store. And then right at the end, he goes, the last 2 minutes was a B+. And it was like, oh, you had it. You had a fucking perfect set. And it still wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't fucking nailed it. It wasn't A and above the whole way. And so those moments, big, small, tiny, extended, those are the things that behind the veil of reality, that's what I saw, that they go on forever. They go up and they play for all eternity with each other, and they live on past you. And it was like, that seems like that's all that matters to me. And one of the things that matters to me is what I learned from the owner of the Comedy Store, Mitzi Shore, is to help other people make their fucking little balls, make their orbs. So if I can make a storytelling show where I can, you know, have a guy like you, actually, I didn't bring this up on purpose, but like really, really work hard on a story and make a fucking great thing instead of just an okay thing, you know, then like, that's one of my things is to create a show that would make you able to fucking make your own. You know, I made a plant for orbs, you know, the way Mitzi made a plant at the Comedy Store. So then it's like making it that allows you to make it. It's just like, I don't know. So like when you do that, it's like that gives me joy to be able to go, I helped with that, you know? Yeah, I'll hold the boom mic for a Tarantino movie if I could help, you know, something great happen. I don't have to be a writer. You know, let me get Matt Parker and Trey Stone. Let me get you guys coffee one day. Let me help. So these are the things that matter.
You gave so many comics a platform to take something hard. You know, these are not positive stories that people are talking about on This Is Not Happening. It was all, you know, violence or addiction or abuse or whatever it may be. It was all tragic stuff, you know, that was turned into something really profound and moving and hilarious, you know.
And you really worked on your thing for
you know, there's this whole movement now in stand-up of taking more kind of devastating subjects. And, you know, we how many fucking jokes can you hear about dating apps? We don't need to hear your take about dating apps. We want to hear something that's unique to you, that you got through and made you a more whole, well-rounded person, and bring that to the stage. Talk about that. You never have to Google, does someone else have a bit about, you know, me carrying around a card in my wallet that said I had to refuse blood transfusions?
Yeah, they called my name at Starbucks, and they said, you know, out of whatever, you know, like, and it's like, you can my name. Like, yeah, guys, they don't care.
Ori, like Miss Pat, Miss Pat calls you.
So I mean, Jay Larson, I saw him do the story about getting the wrong number and then calling the wrong number back and just fucking with people. And I'm like, damn, I saw him at Bridgetown Comedy Fest. I'm like, damn, stories are the new musical closer. So he helped me
Yeah.
start doing stories and make a storytelling show that eventually helped you. And it's like there's this like line of these things help themselves, you know?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you did it, man.
Thanks,
You
buddy.
created an orb. I don't know how it felt to you, but like
I'm
it
glad.
was pretty awesome.
I tell you,
I'm
those
glad
candles
you
too.
leave it at that.
I was doing the chairs. I was like arguing with the venue. I'm like, we can get more chairs in here. I felt like Schindler. I'm like, we can get more. We just have to tilt it. We can get more.
Whoa.
And she said, you can't. This is more than capacity. And you're putting cameras in. I'm like, we have to just tilt it. And so I'm arguing with the whole time as they're setting up the candles. And I wasn't looking at it. My back was to it. And then I turned around. They were all there. It was an entire stage filled with these white candles. And it was the same thing. I just started like fucking tearing up. I was like, oh my God. And it was like, it just hit me all at once. And I was like, fucking lady, this is amazing. You know?
Yeah.
So her doing that helped my thing be more rich. It's just like, I don't know. They're up there. They're up there playing with each other.
Right.
You know?
And I don't know if maybe you felt the same way when you had that moment of tears streaming down your face at that moment. Like when you were growing up, when I was growing up, I thought at best I would have a pretty miserable existence because I didn't see any way out of the witnesses.
Yeah.
So I just thought this is going to be my life until I die, and it's going to be pretty fucking miserable.
Yeah.
So now any sort of victory I have in to have your sights set on a dream that so many people don't even let themselves have, let alone pursue it, let alone actually succeed in it.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Is huge, and that's a perspective that I probably wouldn't have had if I grew up otherwise,
Yeah,
or if
just the
I
fact
had
that we're doing this.
parents that were like, you can do anything you want. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, the idea that you can be a professional stand-up comic, I was like, I didn't even tell anybody when I moved to LA what I was doing because it seemed moronic. You can't do that. People can't do
Right.
that. And then it's like, even if we're not successful, it's like 10 years go by and you're still not having a day job. It's crazy. It's so cool.
Yeah. It
And
is.
if you're
We're very-
Aziz or if you're fucking, Vecchione, it's like we're all just not doing a day job. We're just writing dick jokes and having fun. It's so cool.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, man. We're
Yeah.
pretty lucky. It's not just luck, but we're
There's luck.
lucky that we put in the work to get to
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
So, well, I'm going to let you go, man. I know you got
I gotta go meet Howie Mandel. Yeah.
pods to hop on. Yeah.
Great. Good job. Let me know when this comes out. I'll be happy to
Perpetuating that
promote it.
neurotic
Oh
stereotype.
yeah, we'll see. Will you
Give
shake
him a
my hand?
firm handshake
I
for me.
know. We'll see. Yeah. Just sneeze at him.
So, obviously the special is out now, and
Yeah.
just let people know where they can find you.
It's on Ari Shaffir. It's youtube.com/Ari Shaffir, and I'm Ari Shaffir on Instagram. I deleted my Twitter a long time ago. It's a toxic place. I advise you to do the same, so it doesn't do anything good for your life. And then that's it. Website Ari Shaffir. I have tour dates coming up all the time, so check them out there. But they'll probably be on my Instagram as well. And I don't know. Come see me live. That's what I do best. Oh, I have a podcast
Awesome.
on Skeptic Tank and a new travel podcast that'll be out called You Be Trippin' that Doug will be on. Talking about someplace. India? Is that right?
Africa.
Africa.
Yeah. I'll tell you
That's
my
it.
Africa tales.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, man. Really
All right, buddy.
appreciate it. And congrats, dude.
Thanks.
You nailed it.
You too. Good podcast. I'm glad you're doing it.
There you have it, folks. Ari Shaffir. Check out his new special, Ari Shaffir Jew, streaming now on his YouTube channel. Feels a little weird shouting the word Jew in this climate, but I assure you that is the name of the special. Ari Shaffir Jew. Check it out. It's fantastic. You won't regret it. Follow him on all the platforms at Ari Shaffir. I should mention last night I took mushrooms. Not the first time. Not my first rodeo. Pretty experienced in the world of psilocybin, but I felt like I needed to get myself in a bit of a better headspace before embarking on this podcast. And so, I've had good trips. I've had bad trips in the past. First time was in Prospect Park, beautiful summer day with friends. It was pure elation. And the next few times were great as well. Got cocky with it, started taking them at bars while drinking, and I had a couple of nightmare experiences. One in particular felt like a absolute schizophrenic breakdown where I had these angry, hateful voices screaming at me. It was terrifying. I swore off of them completely for a couple of years. But then my wife is a therapist, and she has gotten pretty into psychedelics recently, and she's all about using them in a more of a therapeutic practice, not recreationally, but really letting yourself sink into the experience, and seeing what kind of things you can unearth that you've been hiding from or need to deal with. So that's the way I do them now. I do them in a dark room, lights out, no music, no distractions. Just pull the covers over me and let myself just sink into the experience. So I did them last night, made myself a tea, I climb into bed, and I don't want to be the guy who's telling you all about his mushroom experience. Trust me, I'm not going to exhaust you with the whole journey. There's nothing worse than somebody telling you about that, or it's like somebody telling you about a dream they had. Who gives a shit? But there was one takeaway I feel like is important to share with you guys, because it's a place that I've been hoping to get to for years, that I feel like I'm finally accessing. So at one point, after facing the initial, there's always a bit of paranoia and thoughts of, morbidity and hurtling toward death in the end. But I surpassed that, and at one point I uncurled myself from the fetal position. I stretched myself out on the bed as long as my body could stretch, and I felt my feet grow roots into the earth, and I exploded out of the earth like a mountain, holding my wife in one arm, my son in the other arm, and I ascended above the cloud line. And as soon as I did, I turned and I saw this bright pink neon flashing sign that just said radical self-acceptance. And I know it sounds trite. There's been books written on it. I'm not coming up with this term on my own, but to see this in this state and come to it on my own was really profound. And I really felt it. It wasn't like I saw it, but I couldn't access it. I felt it. And I had this realization that that's it. That's what you need to tap into. Anything in life is possible if you can really tap into that. You cannot truly love the people you supposedly love without being able to tap into that. You cannot reciprocate the love that they have for you without tapping into that. You can't give it, you can't receive it without having that in place first. That is the key. And like I said earlier, I've had my struggles with that. I really have. And I realized that really is the answer. And as you'll see, a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, I'd say pretty much every guest that I've had so far on this has been able to tap into that. Ari especially. He embodies that fully. Radical self-acceptance. It's difficult to cultivate. It has to be nurtured. It's not a one-time fix. It's going to ebb and flow. But I really believe that is, especially for me, that really is key. That's where I've been wanting to get to for a long, long, long time. One kind of hilarious thing that happened during this experience was, however many minutes after I drank this tea, I felt like this pressure, I felt like my bladder was going to explode, and I couldn't shake this image of my dad standing there shaking his head, being like, Jesus, man, you're 40 goddamn years old, you still can't remember to pee before you take a trip? Unbelievable. Should also mention the song that you heard at the beginning of this podcast that we're going to use to close out the podcast as well. This is a Jehovah's Witness song. Ari and I were talking about the songs that I used to sing at these meetings at the Kingdom Hall. And this was one of the songs, one of the many songs that we used to sing to kick off every meeting. And I hope that you guys will share this podcast with your friends, tell a friend, spread the word, rate, review, subscribe, all that nonsense. I genuinely need it. I want this thing to be a success. I truly do. And it's up to you, the fans. Nothing without you guys. So please tell a friend. Because I want this podcast, this is my ultimate goal. I want this podcast to get big enough that the Jehovah's Witnesses come after me for use of this song. I don't have the rights to it. And that's how I will know that I really made it. That's how I will know this podcast is a success, is if the Jehovah's Witnesses try to sue me. So please help me attain my goal. I want to become embroiled in a litigation nightmare. I want the Jehovah's Witnesses to try to take me for every dime that I am worth. Please help me reach my goal. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys. Give Ari a follow at Ari Shaffir. Give me a follow, please, at Who Doug Smith on all the platforms. Doug Smith Comedy on YouTube. And I'm really excited for what's to come. Thank you guys for coming on this ride with me. And I hope you tune in next week. We got some good things in the works, and I'm really excited. And I hope you stay on this ride with me. Thanks again. See you next week. Goodbye.
This is Jehovah's day. His rule is here to stay. He's laid in Zion, his chief cornerstone. Let all lift up the voice and thank God and rejoice, for in Jehovah's kingdom we put faith alone. What will you bring?